In the world of Clair Obscure Expedition 33, Lune stands as the team's elemental archmage archetype. She wields the power of stains, elemental imprints that allow her to amplify both spells and healing abilities. In my opinion, she's the best all-around and most fun character in the game. Lune's versatility makes her an indispensable asset to any expedition, and I firmly believe she's the most valuable character because of that. You can use her as the team's hyper carry nuker, a support damage dealer, a full-blown healer, or a mix of all three. She might seem complex at first glance, but once you understand her, she's incredibly rewarding. Lune was my favorite character during my first playthrough, and I personally recommend building her as a nuker, which is the main build I'll be covering today. As always, there's a full level by level, easy to follow guide in the description. Before we dive into the build crafting, it's important to understand how Lune's stains work. Each ability she uses creates a stain. You can see which stains each ability creates by looking at the top right of the ability frame. These stains match the element of the ability. For example, using Wildfire creates a fire stain. Some abilities like Wildfire also generate light stains. These are flexible and can count as any element, making them more valuable than standard fire, ice, electric, or earth stains. So what do stains do? They empower your other abilities, adding new effects or enhancing your damage. Take Wildfire again, for example. It needs 2 ice stains to deal increased damage. You can get those by using an ice ability or substitute in light stains. So if you have 1 ice and 1 light stain, that's enough to power up Wildfire's bonus damage. This means Lune thrives on rotating through all of her elements. If you're trying to play her as a pure fire or electric mage, then you're playing her wrong. You won't generate enough stains to power up her abilities, and she will be very, very weak. Lune needs a mix of every element to hit her full potential. With that out of the way, let's talk about what early skills to use. Since the power difference between Acts 1 and 2 and 3 is massive and changes how builds function entirely. Most of these skills will carry into the late game, with a couple of exceptions. The first important spell is the one she starts with, Ice Lance. Ice Lance deals solid single target damage, generates stains, and slows enemies. If you aim the slow at the right enemy, you can manipulate turn order to let a teammate leapfrog ahead of them. Turn order is king in this game. If your characters can act before the enemy, you simply win. Next is Wildfire, your go-to AoE spell, and the first part of your core early game combo. Wildfire hits all enemies and sets them on fire, doing burn damage over time. Burn damage synergizes really well in this game, especially with CL and Mael, who have fire abilities built into their kits. This spell is incredible, and when combined with CL's setup, which I'll cover later, it clears out fodder enemies and sets Lune up for her big finisher, Lightning Dance. Lightning Dance is Lune's best spell in my opinion. When you try it, you'll probably think it's bugged from how much damage it does. And honestly, I'm still not sure it isn't. To make it work well, you have to empower it with fire stains. Without them, it's pretty underwhelming, but it's very easy to build towards. This spell one-shot nearly every major boss in my Act 2 run, even before I fully optimized it. The reason it's so strong in Act 2 is because the game's damage cap is 9,999 per hit, and Lightning Dance hits multiple times, often hitting the cap 6 times in a row, basically allowing her to bypass the damage cap. In Act 1 and 2, any ability that hits multiple times is more valuable than those that hit a single time. Next is Thermal Transfer, the second step in our 3-part win the game combo. I recommend using this instead of Ice Lance just for the early game, but you can use either if you prefer. AP is hard to come by early, and this skill refunds AP if used on a burning enemy, which, because we use Wildfire first, every single enemy will be burning. It occasionally gives you a bonus turn as well, which is insanely powerful. The biggest reason to use Thermal Transfer is because of the AP it generates, giving us enough to use Lightning Dance on the following turn. So with that being said, if you generate enough AP without it, then you can forego this ability. It's just very hard to do early on in the game. Fifth up is Elemental Genesis, which deals Lightning Dance level damage, but in an AoE. It requires 1 stain of each element, which makes it harder to obtain, but this build is designed to make that easier. Think of it like this. If you're fighting a group of strong enemies, build towards Genesis. If it's a single boss, go with Lightning Dance. Lightning Dance is much easier to prep until you get the Kralum weapon. The last early game skill is Crustal Crush. It's great for breaking tougher enemies, which becomes important later on. It also provides you with Earth Stains, which the rest of the early build lacks. So let's talk about the Act 1 and Act 2 combo. Your early combo is simple. It's Wildfire into Thermal Transfer into Lightning Dance. This sequence will carry you through 95% of the early fights, especially if your teammates are pulling their own weight. You'll always start with Wildfire into Thermal Transfer. The final spell depends on the situation. Use Lightning Dance for high single target damage, Elemental Genesis for elite groups of mobs, or Crustal Crush to prep a break on a meaty opponent. I'll show my recommended early Pictos on screen now, in alphabetical order, and where to get them. Or you can just follow the link in the description for the full guide. And now we enter Act 3. In Act 3, Lune starts to get outclassed in raw damage by both Verso and Mael. But she still holds her own, especially with a few tweaks. First, we're going to drop Thermal Transfer. It falls off hard and becomes irrelevant once you have the Cheater Picto, which already gives us extra turns. She'll have more than enough AP from Pictos and gear that it's no longer needed. Replace this with Ice Lance. It's much stronger in the late game. It helps slow dangerous enemies so we can abuse turn order, and still generates useful stains. Unlike Thermal Transfer, it also deals damage that is somewhat worth our time. Next up, we're going to swap Crustal Crush for Terraquake. Terraquake helps with breaking and still does solid damage while generating Earth Stains. It's especially good if you pair Lune with Verso, who's probably the best breaker in the game. Give Lune the basic attack breaker so she can still contribute to breaks even with just her basic attacks. Your endgame combo logic stays the same. Build towards Lightning Dance or Elemental Genesis, but how you do it will change. With the weapon Kralum, you get 2 random stains when you have none. Because they are random, you will either want to start with Terraquake, Wildfire, or Ice Lance depending on what stains you need next. Sometimes both of the stains will be the same, which can lock you out of Genesis, which is pretty annoying, but it's well worth it. Kralum is one of the best weapons in the entire game. But for the early game, we're going to go with the Lighterum. It scales with agility, which I think is the best stat in the entire game, and it also buffs Wildfire's damage and reduces its cost. It's perfect for your early combo. Endgame, it's all about the Kralum. You can get it before Act 1 ends if you're very good, but it's very hard. Still, it's worth the grind. Kralum is Lune's best weapon and arguably one of the best in the entire game. It scales with agility and adds electricity as an element, which is rarely resisted. Kralum gives 3 powerful effects. It gives bonus damage for rotating elements up to 80%. This damage boost will pretty much always be at 40% because you're never going to use the same spell twice in a row. It also generates 2 stains when empty, which is amazing for Lune's opening turns. And it gives you 1 extra AP per stain consumed, which solves all of her AP issues and allows you to cast like a madman. Combined with Cheater and First Strike, Lune often gets 3 actions before enemies can move. This lets her adapt her spell sequence based on the encounter and dominate any battlefield. Kralum alone keeps her competitive with Verso and Mael well into the endgame. So get to the Yellow Harvest and grab that weapon ASAP. For attributes, you'll want to go all in on agility first. Both of her weapons scale best with agility, and agility is just a fantastic stat allowing you to move more often. Move faster, hit harder, beat the game easier. Vitality is the second priority because it's Kralum's second scaling attribute. By the time you get to 99 agility, you should have the Kralum. Might is your third priority, to just boost your raw damage. Luck is super good, but we can raise our crit chance in other ways. It's very important with this build to use your Luminas to raise your crit chance as high as possible without having to go too much into luck. Agility, vitality, and might are your main focus, but it's still super important to have high crit chance. And lastly, we're not going to invest anything into defense. Defense really doesn't matter in this game because in the late game, you're going to get one shot by everything regardless. I'll display the late game recommended Pictos on screen now in alphabetical order. You can also find them listed in the leveling guide in the description. I do want to stress, get Cheater as early as possible. Cheater and Painted Power are hands down the two strongest Pictos in the entire game. Painted Power is unmissable at the end of Act 2, but Cheater is available once you acquire Esky. That said, I wouldn't recommend grinding for it until the start of Act 3, because the boss is extremely hard early on. Lastly, let's talk about some of the companions that best synergize with her. Lune is the glue of any composition and works well with anyone. But with that being said, her favorite partner in crime is CL. In the early game, if you put Lune first in your turn order to set up Wildfire with CL using the ability Searing Bond as a follow-up, you can pretty much set yourself up to easily win the fight. If not, outright just kill them right there. CL also comes with the ability to double Lune's damage, have Lune go instead of CL, and refill her AP through various means. Lune and CL are pretty much meant for each other. As a strong second companion choice, Mael with a fire build is great as well. Lune can set up Mael for success by starting everything on fire for Mael to go to town. And that wraps up my full breakdown of the Lune Nuker build. This build pretty much carried me through the entire game with ease until Verso started to take over. She's incredibly versatile, insanely powerful when built right, and my favorite character in Expedition 33. If you haven't tried this build yet, I highly recommend giving it a shot. There's nothing more satisfying than watching Lightning Dance delete a boss within seconds. Full build guide with skill order, Pictos, and weapon info is in the description. Let me know in the comments how you're running Lune and if you found any broken combos that I missed. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.